On this Wednesday night, what the Prime Minister knew about Beijing allegedly targeting a Canadian MP.
I asked CSIS, what is this briefing?
Plus, Justin Trudeau's brother testifies before the Ethics Committee. Despair and destruction in flood-ravaged parts of Quebec.
Just for information, the bridge is closed.
The helpless people left homeless, the Premier's warning, and the area spared. The Kremlin accusing Ukraine of trying to assassinate Russia's president, the skepticism and the fears of what Moscow could do next. And running on empty.
There's a lot of reasons to be concerned.
The potential ripple effects from an excess of vacant office space.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Neetu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. New details are emerging about when the government learned a Conservative MP and his family were allegedly targeted by the Chinese government. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is now calling for CSIS to share more information with the government about any threats against MPs in the future.
When it comes to an MP's safety, when it comes to their family's safety, we need to know, even if it's a mild concern or something that wouldn't otherwise hit a threshold that CSIS would feel it needs to be.
Mackenzie Gray joins me now. What else did the Liberals have to say?
Well, Neetu, after avoiding answering for 24 hours, today the Liberals said they didn't know about a CSIS report alleging a Conservative MP was a target of Beijing.
I asked CSIS, what is this briefing? What is this supposed story that is out in the media from a leak? What do we know about it?
That media report came from the Globe and Mail, saying a 2021 CSIS briefing alleged Conservative MP Michael Chong and his family were targets of a Chinese diplomat in Canada because he supported labeling Beijing's treatment of the Uyghurs a genocide. Justin Trudeau saying he first learned about it reading the Globe.
Was it ever briefed up out of CSIS? It was not. CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern.
But Trudeau says that was the wrong call, and CSIS should have told him.
We're making it very, very clear to CSIS and all our intelligence officials that when there are concerns that talk specifically about any MP, particularly about their family, those need to be elevated.
Chong had previously been briefed by CSIS, but not about Beijing's threats against him and his family.
They didn't tell me about this particular individual in Toronto, Mr. Wei Zhou, and they didn't expel this particular individual.
I understand that there may have been something offensive said, but I have no idea what the hell it was.
In a raucous question period, the opposition didn't buy the government response.
It is impossible to believe that he was not made aware of these threats 2 years ago when they were documented by his own intelligence services.
They were asleep at the switch for 10 years when they had the reins of government. They could have introduced new powers for CSIS. They didn't do it.
The NDP said the Chong story underscores the need to have a public inquiry into foreign interference, a decision that Justin Trudeau has handed over to former Governor General David Johnston, who will make that decision on May 23rd, Neetu.
All right. And Mackenzie, the Prime Minister's brother testified today before the Ethics Committee about a donation to the Trudeau Foundation linked to China. What did he have to say about this?
Yeah, Justin Trudeau's brother is defending the foundation for accepting a $200,000 donation back in 2016 from billionaires with ties to Beijing, whose goal was allegedly to try and curry favor with the government.
There were a lot of things that I felt needed to be corrected for the good work of the foundation to continue and for all the doubts that are being thrown around about it to stop.
Alexandre Trudeau, who's listed as a succession member of the foundation, told the committee he respected the Chinese donors.
And I have no reason to doubt that this man never tried anything that would look like interference. So as far as I'm concerned, he's an honorable man.
Despite that, Trudeau believed the donation didn't impact Canada-China relations.
There was no foreign interference, no possibility of interference, no intention or means of interference. There is nothing there. There is nothing there. Please investigate us.
The Prime Minister did meet with those Chinese donors, but his brother says that Justin Trudeau was not involved with the large donation in any way and hasn't had any association with the organization since he was elected Liberal leader, which undercuts a Conservative attempt, Neetu, to tie the foundation directly to the Prime Minister.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mackenzie. In Quebec, police believe a body recovered this morning is likely one of two missing volunteer firefighters. The pair was swept away by floodwaters during a rescue on Monday. The region has been devastated by heavy rain this week, damaging critical infrastructure and forcing hundreds of people from their homes. Mike Armstrong reports.
The water swept into this neighborhood Monday in minutes. People were told to grab a bag and leave. Some didn't even have time for that. There was a river in the street, this woman says. We left with nothing. The premier toured Baie St. Paul Wednesday, reassuring some and warning others. About 50 homes were destroyed. Some won't be allowed to rebuild in case the land floods again.
Some problems may be solved, some maybe not. Maybe we'll have to ask some people to move.
The search continues for one of the local firefighters lost Monday. The pair had just helped airlift a couple to safety when they were swept away themselves. One of the bodies was found Wednesday morning. Police say crews are still searching for the other, from the air, on the ground, and on the water. Now, Baie St. Paul has been the worst hit area, but there are spots like this almost right across the province, mostly brought on by heavy rain in recent days. In the Lanaudière region northeast of Montreal, several towns have declared a state of emergency. Travel in the region has been complicated by washed out roads. Now, water levels are still rising off the west island of Montreal. The bridge to Île Mercier has been closed. It's a small community of about 50 homes. They are for now accessible only by boat.
Just for information, the bridge is closed.
Although this woman did cross by foot as police tried to stop her. She says it was safe, but that she was told she's going to be ticketed. Water levels are expected to stop rising within the next 48 hours. There's clear weather for a week after that. Dikes are still being raised higher in some areas, but the region's been on flood alert since March 18th. The fire department says the work that's been done has so far paid off.
As for now, we don't have any evacuation. We don't have any houses that have been flooded.
Well, the city of Gatineau has about 330 people who've been forced from their homes. 3 ferries have also been suspended because the water they travel across is too high. Mike Armstrong, Global News, St. Alphonse Rodriguez, Quebec.
Multiple regions in BC are also on alert for rising waters. There are now evacuation orders for multiple homes in the village of Cache Creek in the province's interior. It declared a state of emergency earlier this week due to rising floodwaters, which have already destroyed one property. Rapid snowmelt and upcoming rain threaten to overflow rivers and creeks in central and southern BC, potentially endangering more communities. To a disturbing case in Ontario now, where a Mississauga man is charged with 2 counts of counseling or aiding suicide. Police say 57-year-old Kenneth Law is suspected of selling and delivering sodium nitrite, a substance dangerous when taken in large doses to people at risk of self-harm. On top of that, his alleged crime could also involve an operation spanning dozens of countries across the globe. Mike Drolet reports.
Tom Parfit was a young man consumed with anxiety when he took his own life in 2021. He was found in a UK hotel with a packet of sodium nitrite by his side. But when his father asked for answers, he got none.
Unfortunately, the police was showing no interest in the UK about this. They'd seen it as just, Tom taking his own life. I had a feeling it was something more than that. I had a feeling that someone had assisted his suicide.
So he began his own investigation, discovering online forums detailing how large dosages of sodium nitrite, a salt compound used to cure meats, could be used for suicide. And not only was it legal, it was easy to buy online. The Times of London dug a little deeper, alleging the sodium nitrite legally purchased by Parfit's son came from a Mississauga, Ontario company run by Kenneth Law, who until recently worked as a chef at the Fairmont Royal York Hotel. On Tuesday, he was arrested and charged by Peel Police, who allege he was actively marketing and selling his product to people at risk of self-harm.
We've identified 2 victims, both in the region of Peel.
And they now want to hear from anybody who received packages from other companies linked to Law, including M Time Cuisine, Ambuca, academic, escape mode, and IceMac.
We're aware of 1,200 packages that have been shipped.
How many contained sodium nitrite? Police aren't sure. What suicide prevention experts know is that they're seeing more of the product than they'd like. But the real concern is how suicide is marketed online.
I have patients that call it suicide porn. They tell me that they're like addicted to these images and these stories and this conversation. And it's really hard for them to disconnect from that because it's an endless supply of information, imagery.
A reality that complicates the mental health crisis. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
If you or someone you know needs help, you can call Talk Suicide Canada at 1-833-456-4566. Support is available 24 hours a day, every day of the year. Canada has pledged $71 million in humanitarian aid for Sudan and 2 neighboring countries dealing with a large number of refugees in the wake of violent clashes. International Development Minister Harjit Sajjan says the funds will provide basic food, water, and health services.
In this rapidly changing situation, Canada is ensuring that our funding remains flexible to allow our partners and host community to respond to evolving needs on the ground and to tackle new challenges as they emerge.
Fighting between the Sudanese army and a paramilitary group continue despite the declared extension of a ceasefire. Deadly violence erupted more than 2 weeks ago. At least 550 people have been killed. Russia is accusing Ukraine of trying to assassinate President Vladimir Putin. Moscow says it downed 2 drones over the Kremlin overnight. As Eric Sorensen explains, Ukraine denies the claim and warns Russia may be preparing to launch a large-scale terrorist attack in retaliation.
It was a spectacular sight, a drone destroyed above the Kremlin at 3 a.m. The question, was it a real attack or was it staged? There are questions around the timing of different videos and whether those are people on the roof when it happened. Today, Russia accused Ukraine of trying to assassinate President Vladimir Putin. Ukraine's president visiting Finland denied it, even suggested Ukraine doesn't have the resources to do it.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities. We don't have, enough weapons for these.
The U.S. Secretary of State said he could not validate the Russian allegations.
I would take anything coming out of the Kremlin with a very large shaker of salt.
A Kremlin statement called it a terrorist attack. Quote, the Russian side reserves the right to take retaliatory measures where and when it sees fit. Former President Dmitry Medvedev went further, posting there are no options but the elimination of Zelensky and his clique. An attack by Ukrainians can't be ruled out, but is unlikely, says this analyst.
It would seem far more likely that it is some kind of either false flag attack or something designed to provoke and rally the Russian population that would be an official Ukrainian initiative.
In spite of massive damage and casualties inflicted by Russia, Ukraine has been preparing for a spring offensive. Armata! Just days before Russia marks its annual Victory Day on May 9th, a purported drone attack could give Vladimir Putin a boost among the Russian people.
Try and rally them behind the president, because there is a fear among the Russian leadership that the population is going somewhat disaffected with the war.
If this were a real attack, the bigger story would be that Ukrainian partisans or Russian dissidents penetrated Russia's security and air defenses. The concern in the West is that Russia may be preparing to justify an assault on the Ukrainian capital and on President Zelensky himself. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Serbia is in shock and mourning tonight after a deadly massacre at a school. Coming up, how police say a student plotted the attack. A mass shooting at a school in Serbia's capital has left 8 students and a security guard dead. A 13-year-old student has been arrested. Police say the boy confessed to the attack, which he had planned for weeks, and made a list of children he wanted to kill. Investigators say the teen was also carrying 2 Molotov cocktails and used his father's handgun in the rampage. His parents have now been detained. In Texas, that massive search for a man accused of fatally shooting his 5 neighbors, including a young boy, over a noise complaint last week has ended. Last night, police followed a tip and captured 38-year-old Francisco Oropeza. He was found hiding under laundry at a home 16 kilometers from the crime scene. The accused killer's wife was also arrested and charged with hindering the suspect's apprehension. In Brazil's capital, police raided the home of former President Jair Bolsonaro today and arrested 2 personal aides, part of a probe into falsified COVID-19 vaccination records. That's Bolsonaro telling reporters he has nothing to hide. But the investigation could help answer questions about how the far-right former leader, a COVID-19 skeptic who vowed never to get the vaccine, became registered as vaccinated while he was Brazil's leader. Out of office. Ahead, how rising living costs are fueling a commercial real estate crisis. In a bid to cool persistently high inflation, the U.S. Central Bank hiked its interest rate for the 10th time in 14 months. The U.S. Federal Reserve raised the key rate by 1/4 point to 5.25%. A year ago, it was 1%. This also marks America's highest interest rate since August 2007. Similar interest hikes here in Canada have also made it difficult to afford real estate. It's not just a matter of Canadians being able to pay their mortgages either. The commercial real estate sector is feeling the squeeze of rising costs. As Anne Gaviola explains, its problems are only getting bigger as businesses find fewer reasons to need an office.
The pandemic turned Toronto's once bustling financial district into a ghost town. Most offices have reopened, but hybrid and flexible work models are the new norm in many workplaces across Canada and beyond. Vacancy rates for commercial office buildings are high, and economists are worried.
There's a lot of reasons to be concerned about the commercial real estate sector.
Less commuting is better for the environment, easier on the pocketbook, and could mean this trend is here to stay.
Employers are realizing, gee, this is a huge expense, this building where I bring people in every day, 5 days a week, and I can save an awful lot of overhead if I can get out of those leases or ownership and have the people work virtually.
There's all sorts of incentives like 3 months rent, other inducements to get tenants in. And that to me is where it's signaling that there's been a shift in the marketplace.
Many feel this is just the beginning of a real estate reckoning.
That's going to profoundly impact the market value of these buildings, and there's going to be bankruptcies. There's going to be failures.
Economist Carl Gomez warns of a price correction of as much as 50%.
Nobody really knows if that's going to, happen instantaneously or over a period of time.
Some see an even bigger change in the U.S. market. Charlie Munger, the right-hand man of legendary investor Warren Buffett, this week warned there's a lot of trouble in office buildings, shopping centers, and other properties. The 99-year-old billionaire said there's a lot of agony out there. He worries U.S. banks are full of bad loans on commercial properties. An ominous warning as American financial institutions experience upheaval, vulnerable to the pressure of high interest rates and waning confidence.
These loans are very, very big. Office properties trades in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So there are knock-on effects that happen to the broader economy when something as big as that starts to, feel distress.
Distress over lower demand for office buildings, like a canary in a coal mine, perhaps a sign of bigger issues to come. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Next, the massive security preparations and planned protests ahead of the King's coronation. With large crowds set to line London streets for the King's coronation, Ottawa is warning Canadians about travelling to the UK over potential terrorism threats. Yesterday, Buckingham Palace was locked down over a security incident. Now police say they'll be out in full force and using facial recognition software on the crowds. Saturday's ceremony will involve the biggest security operation in British history. Crystal Goomansingh reports on the preparations.
Under the cloak of darkness, Operation Golden Orb glittered.
the first full dress rehearsal along the coronation procession route for the thousands who will be taking part.
And so the opportunity to take part is something that we relish, and it's a great opportunity to do a fantastic duty to the King.
Canada has a contingent of 45 armed forces members in the military parade. The rehearsal covered the full procession route to Westminster Abbey and back, lasting several hours. The royal family was also spotted at the Abbey for their own rehearsals. Around all of the key locations, there are onlookers and police. For those in central London, a warning for the Metropolitan Police Service. They say there will be a low tolerance for any sort of disruption at the coronation. 29,000 police officers will be deployed over the course of the holiday-long weekend. Republic campaigns to abolish the monarchy. Graham Smith had anticipated up to 1,700 people out along the coronation procession route, but fears a chilling effect as officers now have more powers under the Public Order Act.
We're going to be contacting everybody to reassure them. For us, the police are being very clear that they have no problem with our plans and won't stop us.
The new law prohibits serious disruptions. The disruption Smith says he's planning involves people wearing bright yellow, holding banners, and chanting, "Not my king."
The aim is to make us impossible to ignore, and I think we'll achieve that.
Something they've done many times before, but how people will react to them during the coronation is the question. Not my king! Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.
And Global News will have further coverage of the King's coronation on Saturday. Donna Friesen will be live in London at 5 a.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. Pacific, right here on Global. Donna will also bring you Global National from London tomorrow. But that is our newscast for this Wednesday. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is Victoria, Prince Edward Island. We love seeing your Canada. Please email your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks so much for watching and have a great night.